Hello again, everyone, and welcome to Marquette University Law School, the virtual Lubar Center. I'm Mike Goucher, and this is On the Issues. This is our continuing series of conversations with news and policymakers, or people we like to say are doing interesting and important work in this region and beyond. Today, we're talking about Milwaukee's lOn collaboration. This is a significant community investment on the north side of Milwaukee, which for years, so pretty much up until recently, saw a lot of disinvestment. This project will include the redevelopment of the old Gimbel's Schuster's department store on King Drive. That's just south of North Avenue, a big building that many of us are familiar with. Those of us who grew up in Milwaukee may even have memories of this building when it was having another life. It's about to have yet another life. But it is more, this project is more than just a physical structure. And we want to talk about what this all entails, what this collaboration entails with a number of the individuals who've been intimately involved with this, and they're from organizations in the community and also from the community itself. So let me introduce those folks to you right now. Ken Robertson is Executive Vice President, Chief Financial Officer, and Chief Operating Officer of the Greater Milwaukee Foundation. Greg Wesley is Senior Vice President of Strategic Alliances and Business Development, that is, for the Medical College of Wisconsin. Kevin Newell is the President and CEO of the Royal Capital Group, the developer in this project. And Lenny Mosley is the longtime president of the Halyard Park Neighborhood Association, and she's a member of the lOn Collaboration's Community Advisory Council. Thanks to all four of you for being with us today. And I'm going to begin with Ken Robertson. Ken, for people who are just sort of learning about this project, this lOn collaboration, tell us precisely what it is and how this idea came to be.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you guys about lOn. We at the Greater Milwaukee Foundation are very excited to be going on this journey. You know, just stepping back, I would tell you in a nutshell that what lOn really is a generational collaboration with the goal of providing resources to support equitable, healthy, and thriving communities. And what that really means in a nutshell is that we're here to support communities. I mean, our focus has been community-led, and we're going to talk about that theme of being community-led a lot during the next 30 or 40 minutes or so. What we mean by that specifically is that community voice is at the center of what we're doing. This isn't another project or another initiative where you had some pillars or some larger organizations coming into the community, telling the community what needs to be done. This is a true collaboration that starts with listening to the community and us walking alongside the community to really discover solutions to the issues that have plagued us for a while together.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Sorry, Mike. And we're focusing on reducing racial equity, racial disparities, and improving social determinants of health. Really our core mission at Greater Milwaukee Foundation, as well as the core mission of the Medical College.
So give us a sense of what this means practically for your organization. We talked about the redevelopment of the Gimbel's Schuster's building. You're going to be moving offices there, correct?
Yeah. And it started for us really down a practical plan. Right now is located at Slits Park, which is literally a stone's throw away from where we're going to be located. And we had enjoyed a 10-year lease there, a great location in that space. Well, we started a conversation really 3 years ago about how could we do something a little different? How could we basically align the investment that we need to make in establishing a headquarters? How can we get closer to our community, provide needed services, and then this theme of going back, really learning from our overall community and creating something that's catalytic from an economic growth opportunity. We see that catalytic growth that's happening in other areas of Milwaukee, and some areas around the city just we're having a tough time in sparking that overall growth. And one of the things that, from a foundation perspective, that was really kind of a question that guided us was, where in Milwaukee will we need it most? And we got the answer at Martin Luther King Drive.
Greg Wesley, as a representative of the medical college here, what was it about this project that you felt was a good fit for the work being done by the medical college?
Well, I think a couple of things. One, we found a great partner in the Greater Milwaukee Foundation. They had a really good perspective of community issues, have access to supporters of the community from a philanthropic standpoint, a perspective that we thought we could learn from. Having a partner like Rural Capital, who focuses on development, particularly in the urban community. Those two partners are really helpful to us. At MCW, we believe that we have a responsibility to help build a healthier world. Community engagement is one of our 4 key missions. And having institutional partners who understand the community well, that can help us to learn more, that would also allow for our centers and institutes and departments who will relocate to the building to work together in a legitimate way that we probably wouldn't be able to do on our own. So having good partners really makes it something that we feel will be beneficial to the Hallier Park residents, the Harambe residents, the Brewers Hill residents, and serve as an example to the entire city of Milwaukee that place-based catalytic investments make a difference.
Greg, you touched on this, but again, help us understand what parts of the medical college will actually physically be moving to this new site on King Drive.
Sure. I'll just cite just a couple of examples. Our Comprehensive Injury Center will move to that location. Our Center for Advancing AIDS Intervention Research will move there. Parts of our Cancer Center outreach will be there. Our Institute of Health and Equity leaders will be there. Just a number of different aspects of the institution from a centers and institute and department perspective will be present. It gives them an opportunity to co-locate in one location, gives them the ability to partner with community organizations in the area like Milwaukee Health Services and others, and then also gives us the ability to learn from community on what's important from a partnership standpoint for them. As you know, academia has to partner with community for all types of things, community participatory research, awareness, et cetera. And, asking people to always go to Wauwatosa, which is, a fine community, but when you're talking about addressing issues like health disparities, if you're invested in a community, then that community will likely invest in you, and your presence makes a difference.
Kevin Newell, as the developer in this project, tell us about your involvement. How did you come to be a part of this?
Hey folks, hey, I probably seem to have some internet issues and my camera keep going in and out now, but
that's a good picture of you, Kevin. I just want to be on the record as saying that. That's a good picture of you.
Only got one, so you'll see it in heavy rotation.
It's a good one.
But no, this is a project that, kind of symbolizes what we try to stand for at Royal Capital and the principle associated with the foundation, the principle associated with the foundation of the company. When the medical college, has set out, a strategy to do an urban investment, we saw it as a good opportunity to collaborate and bring some of our skill sets that can actually help to make that vision come alive. And then obviously work with the Greater Milwaukee Foundation, who was going down a dual path, a separate task force associated with urban development as well. The opportunity to combine all of these different teammates and say, hey, we're all going in the same direction, let's go together, was critical. At Royal Capital, we try to focus a lot on comprehensive, multifaceted investment opportunities that go beyond the bricks and mortar. And so also having this opportunity to build this health and equity campus is somewhat of a way to be a demonstration in ways that, we can speak about, hey, this is how we can see other communities thriving and other communities coming together and working together. And we did it our own little way, right? And so we're excited about it. We're thrilled to be, part of something that we hope will have a legacy for the city of Milwaukee for quite some time. And we're trying to build upon it to make sure that we can multiply this effort.
You mentioned it's more than bricks and mortar, but yet having seen some video of that old Gimbel's Schuster's building, it's pretty incredible bricks and mortar. There is a lot to work with in terms of making that building come to life again.
Yeah, and it's a challenge, right? I don't want to sidestep the fact that we're buying a 400,000 square foot building that has been, critically underutilized over, the past 2 decades. And we're trying to layer in some complicated users in terms of the mix of housing, office, and other community benefit space. And we're doing so under the restrictions associated with historic tax credits and associated with the building preservation and, a pandemic economy. So it's extremely difficult. But this building is very historic to a lot of folks. I get folks from all kinds of backgrounds that come to me and say, hey, you guys are a part of that redevelopment of Gimbel's. My mom used to work there. I remember, spending weekends going up and down the aisles. So it's very, very symbolic in a lot of ways, building, taking the old and making it new. But it's incredible to be in a position where we can have so many connections to the community through this historic development.
Lenny Mosley, I want to bring you into this. And as I mentioned at the beginning, you're the president of the Halyard Park Neighborhood Association. You've been president for a lot of years. You've lived in Halyard Park for decades. From the perspective of the community, what does this project potentially mean?
Well, Mike, it potentially means growing the community in a positive way. And I'm so grateful to the Medical College and the Greater Milwaukee Foundation that they embraced us. They came to the meeting. I remember Wesley Gregg came to one of our meetings and said, we would like to inform you about our plans and looking for a site to do this. And Gimbel Schuster's was that site. And we all looked at each other like, what's going on? Because it's a lot to be concerned about. Our number one was traffic. Where are we going to park? And the Gimbel Schuster's, Val Phillips here, is on Val Phillips, and the residents from Halyard Park lives on Val Phillips. So we were concerned about overflow of traffic. And when they explained to us that they would have underground parking and appropriate parking and the quieting zones, we're talking about streetscape that would create a quiet street. We're talking about roundabouts, flower pots, and that helped us so much to embrace this with open arms and to see that this would revitalize the area. It means a lot to us, and we appreciate them including us in our opinions.
Describe for people watching this today, Ms. Mosley, the area's transformation over the years. I'm sure you have seen as a homeowner in that area, good times and not so good times.
Well, homeowner here for us has been good all the time, Mike.
Yeah, Halyard Park, yes, absolutely.
Halyard Park. Yep. We are a neighborhood all to ourselves. And most of these people built here in the late 70s, early 80s. We moved here 40 years ago. This past March, it was 40 years. And we don't have really crime in our neighborhood. We look out for each other. We have a neighborhood roster. We have the address, phone numbers, email address. So we stay in touch. If somebody is ill, you take them flowers. If somebody's going to be away, they let you know they're going to be away. Someone moves in, you take a flower, a fruit basket. So we are a neighbor who knows each other. We have not been distant. We have monthly meetings. We have meetings every month except July, August, and December. So we stay in touch with each other. And like I said before, having these new things come to our neighborhood and willing to work with us so we can keep that quiet and calm. We don't want people running through the neighborhoods. And like somebody just told me, this neighborhood looks more like a suburb than a residential, the urban look. Yeah. So we're happy that they're coming in and redoing this building and bringing some life back to Dr. Martin Luther King.
I think it's always interesting, and I think this is true even sometimes as you drive through parts of our city, and the neighborhoods look pretty healthy. And you'll see neighborhoods that are doing very well, and yet you will see retail stretches that are forlorn. and
Yes.
speak of a different Milwaukee. And so to have something in a way, this project is both very real, but it's also symbolic. It says something about the health and vitality of a certain part of our city. Would you agree with that?
I do agree with that, because it's what you bring to an area. It's like right now I'm concerned about a lot of poverty that has been moving around. There are some organizations who want to put a lot of indigent people into one area. You can't place all indigent people in one area. You have to be creative enough to put some here, some there. Create more green space. We need more green space in this central city here for our children and our seniors to go take a walk or sit out. So that's what I'm looking for, to the calmness of the area. So we don't have to be afraid when you go out. And we do not have that now. We feel very confident and safe.
Ken Robertson mentioned this, and one final question for this part of our conversation, Ms. Mosley, but Ken Robertson mentioned that, you know, what he feels makes this project different is that it is not a top-down approach. It's not saying, you know, we got this big idea and here we come, and, you know, and everybody in the neighborhood is going to have to live with it. It was not like that. What were the community meetings like from your end?
Well, our community meetings were informative. We asked a lot of questions. Greater Milwaukee and Medical College asked us, what would you like to see in this building? And we gave them ideas about what we'd like to see. A senior citizen, a workout room, a little restaurant, somewhere you can stop in and get a cup of coffee. Or I would like personally to see a music room for our youth in the neighborhood. Have somebody donate some instruments and teachers to come in and teach these children after school. A mentoring room for children who need help with their homework. And they were very agreeable. They was looking at what could we do. There's going to be apartments there. There's going to be restaurants. And I think this is healthy for our neighborhood. I really do.
Ken Robertson, Ms. Mosley just touched on at least some of the priorities that were discussed. And I'd like to have you maybe feed off of that. So housing is one. What were the other priorities identified in these community conversations? Ken?
Ken?
Question for me. Okay, absolutely. Can I just sitting there listening to Ms. Mosley, I can't express at all, and Greg kind of hit on this again, is that, you know, place is extremely important, and institutions like ours, being at the table, really sitting down with the residents there and really listening and not bringing kind of our preconceived ideas of what's needed to move the project forward, and really listening to the community is really the secret to kind of moving a project along like this. So, you know, it's just extremely important to get the perspective, the authentic perspective of the residents that are in the community, even though from a proximity perspective, you know, I mentioned that we're relatively close to where our new location is, but you know, you get a totally different perspective sitting at the table, listening to the residents and listening to residents describe what they need and what they don't need, and where they need us to actually lean in on a collaboration like that.
So some of the priorities that they laid out to you that were important to them, Ken, can you walk through a few of those for us?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, economic opportunity, I'll name the 5 and then I'll jump to a couple of them, and then I'll shut up and allow the real experts to really talk about some of the other pieces. But, you know, the 5 was really economic opportunity, and it was primarily small business support. And I'll talk a little bit about what we're doing right now to kind of move small businesses along, and why it's critical in an area that is, you know, really suffered from disinvestment for so many years, decades, really. Housing is something that I think we all appreciate that, you know, we need to solve for that in Milwaukee, and it's something that we're leaning in heavily with this project. Early childhood education is a focus of the Greater Milwaukee Foundation. It is an area of focus that really it basically kind of moves you forward from a 2-generational perspective. Not only are we able, by increasing the seats and increasing the quality of early childhood education, we're able to provide support to the children. We know that early education really is critical to their lifelong learning experience, but it also gives an opportunity for the child takers or the caregivers to basically develop their careers and help them from a workforce perspective. So it's critical to our success in Milwaukee. Health and wellness, we're digging in deeper, and I'm going to allow Mr. Wesley to kind of take us through some of the initiatives that we're going to bring into the brick and mortar of Thrive On, but it's critical for us moving forward. The last piece is something that we've termed as really social cohesion. And, the way I would describe it is really just building community, celebrating diversity, promoting a sense of belonging around the neighbors. That's something that, it's not a surprise to most folks in Milwaukee that we suffer from some startling statistics around segregation and what we've done in this space. And our attempt, again, and not trying to be arrogant to think that this is the only way to solve this, but it really starts with just kind of bringing people together. Put together a sort of project that, we don't expect the administrative employees or the headquarters employees to kind of run out of this community right after work. We expect them to blend into this community space and really get to know our neighbors. So those are the 5 focal points that we're diving into.
Let's look at a couple of those more closely. And Greg Wesley, Ken Robertson sort of almost turned it over to you right there. And I'll let you expand on that. When you saw what the residents were talking about in terms of health, in terms of wellness, what was your reaction, and why did you feel this project could help address those concerns and needs?
Well, I think in a couple of ways. Number one, listening to Ken kind of give that really good explanation. What came to mind was, a term that has been used quite often over the last several years called social determinants of health, and the impact that social determinants have on one's health, and how clinical care, while very, very important, is only a small component of being healthy. And if you look at the African-American community and the Hispanic community, we have some serious gaps around health disparities. And the reason those gaps exist in part are lack of investment around things like health and wellness, like housing, like early childhood education in a holistic way. And we felt with this particular project that we could bring greater focus on the importance of social determinants of health. We could bring our faculty members and leaders into the fold more, closer to community, and begin to invest in it economically, with our presence, and with partners in a way that would then bring greater awareness to the importance of investing holistically to solve a problem, not just in reaction to a crisis, right? A lot of times people react to crisis, which is important, but if you really want to start to change the needle, we believe that you have to do it more on the front end than responding on the back end, because then you're playing catch up. And we're already playing catch up from a disparity standpoint to begin with. So it really is an opportunity to try something that we believe is different, that we have researched around the country in other places that have worked, and bringing bits and pieces back to Milwaukee, and then partnering with the residents to help them to understand what we're trying to do. And then for them to say, yeah, we think that might work. No, we don't think that'll work. And, agree upon something that we can put our shoulders to the wheel.
Kevin Newell, there is a housing component to this project. Can you describe what is envisioned for the Thrive on King building?
Yeah, I think the teammates, and including Lindy, have done a great job of explaining exactly, the theory, right, of what do we set out to do and how do we set out to do it, right? So we had a very robust engagement strategy. And now we're talking about how do we leverage the internal capacity with the medical colleges, different centers, institutes, as Greg kind of talked about, that focus on the social determinants, and then the efforts with the foundation as a catalytic piece, right? So in utilizing the word catalytic, we're buying this massive building, and the centers, institutes, and the foundation will occupy a portion of the building, but it's catalyzed the other components of the building that include housing. So two things that we will have as far as the housing component is a mix of senior housing as well as family housing. And we're in a targeted area that has witnessed not only gentrification, right, which can have its positive associated with beautification, but we're in an area that has witnessed displacement, and that's not appropriate, and that's not fair to our community. So us being able to double down and provide family and senior housing at an affordable level on the senior side helps to prevent folks from being aged out and priced out. And on the family side, it adds to retention and folks coming back to the areas they may have grown up in that they otherwise couldn't afford. So being able to leverage those two components is a critical piece of the development, critical piece of the overall sustainability. And as we continue to move forward, we think that will be something that will hopefully be, integrated in a way that is so seamless, it becomes to help to build that neighborhood that Mrs. Mosley talked about. Mm-hmm. The other components of the building that my teammates kind of talked about, we start talking about the day-to-day operations of what does it look like to live and play at Thrive On. So our first floor, which is a very large footprint, more than 50,000 square feet, is really the vision of the community. So we start talking about those listening sessions and those, all the time that we spent with the neighborhood. They was telling us what they wanted to see, what their needs were, where their disparities were. And so we talked about the Early Child Education Center. So we'll have that Early Child Education Center that will be hopefully led by a group that is led by a Black leader. According to the RFP responses we've had thus far, that it's trending well. And it'll be a grade A facility that can hopefully be a demonstration for other ECEs, and we'll also work on capacity building. We're also going to have that food demonstration kitchen. We can talk about healthy eating, right? We know diabetes and high blood pressure are big things and big challenges for our community. So being able to bring in that way of education is important. And then we're going to have other space like maker space and all these other things that kind of help us respond to what the community needs were. And so we think that this is going to be an intergenerational campus that is going to allow many people from many different backgrounds to come together, convene, associate, develop, create, and enjoy life together. So we're super excited about it. We can't wait to get going.
Ms. Mosley, I want to follow up on something that Kevin just said, and it is a delicate subject sometimes. It is the subject of gentrification. Does improvement in neighborhoods increase property values? Do people feel like they are being displaced by changing demographics in the community? I want to have you address that. Did that come up in the conversations? And why do you feel confident that this has emerged as a project that the whole community can support?
It is a project that the whole community needs to get involved in. We have been also talking about it. I'm so glad it came up. Gentrification is happening rapidly here in where we are in Halyard Park and throughout the city, really. Since Fiserv came, and they are only walking distance from where I live. For the Bucks, when they came for the playoff, the people parked here in our driveways and walked down to Fiserv. The houses are selling now. One house just sold for me down the street from me for $437,000. One on Northvale Phillips sold for $457,000. So as the property goes up in value, taxes increase. Then we are who are left here with Social Security and a little pensions, because when we retired, people didn't get the pensions that they're getting now. So these people are being pushed out because they cannot afford the taxes. So I see it happening, and we've been addressing this now for some time. We're trying to meet up with the Bucks and some other people, the medical college or whomever, Greater Milwaukee Foundation to set this fund. So we've lived here forever, for 40 years, that we could freeze our taxes and let FireServe and some of the other foundations and stuff help us freeze the taxes so we can stay in our homes. That has been spoken about, and we're at a dead end right now, I feel. I get frustrated at it sometimes because it just keeps happening that we're being moved out and nothing is being done.
Are you encouraged by the fact that in this project, there is housing for seniors, there's housing for people of modest means? Are you feeling good about that?
I feel good about that, but this is only one project here. If we could see more, we need more. We need more people to step up to the plate and say, don't worry, that we're not going to force you out. It's like Hillside down the street from me. I don't know what's going on with Hillside. Those people has been in that area. Hillside's been there forever before I came to Milwaukee in '63. So I want them to stay there. It's kitty corner from FireServe. And pretty soon, I'm feeling the city is going to sell that property. More people will be pushed out. They're going to be pushed out of the neighborhood. Where are they going to go? And so that's the big concern of ours. They are our neighbors, so I'm concerned.
Right.
Mike,
Hey,
can I
Robert.
give an example of
Yeah, Greg, sure.
of what we've tried to do in being a good partner with the neighborhood and the residents? There was an anti-displacement fund that has been created. It really was an initiative led by the Greater Milwaukee Committee, but supported by the Medical College, supported by Rural Capital, supported by the Greater Milwaukee Foundation financially. We're still raising funds to keep that going. We're in a pilot process. But when we heard of that concern and we recognized that we're bringing a substantial investment to the area, we wanted to give the residents at least some comfort to know that we heard them by demonstrating with a tangible product, which is the anti-displacement fund, and then also trying to create platforms and spaces for the residents' voice to be elevated to talk about a greater policy issue, which is, the property taxes. And we have to be a good partner around that. And we want this to be, continue to be a mixed income community that all residents of the city of Milwaukee can benefit from, whether you're moderate income, market, or otherwise. Our decision to come into the area is because it had great assets from a transportation standpoint, great assets from a people standpoint, great assets from a physical infrastructure standpoint, but was not invested in the same way that other communities or other neighborhoods have received investment economically. So it's a balance, but we know that we have to be good neighbors with people like Ms. Mosley and others, because they're going to tell us, right? And we made a generational commitment. We do not want to wake up in 10 years and it's a completely different neighborhood, because that's not the intent of our institution. We want to address the health disparities. We want to make sure that we highlight and be able to point to, when you invest in community, the community that you're investing in actually benefits from.
It looked like Ms. Mosley, you wanted to add something. Yes.
Yes, I want to thank you, Mr. Wesley, for that information. And I heard something about that fund, but we're going to have our monthly meeting on the 27th of September. And it's going to be Zoom meeting, and I'll send out information about the time, 5:30 p.m. So we're going to have another Zoom meeting. And if you could be at that meeting, I would appreciate it.
Absolutely.
But I think there's actually some value in that exchange, right? What we just witnessed is very reminiscent of what we have done, right? Where we have a concerned resident, and this is Mosley, and Greg is trying to respond, right, and say, this is what we've done, and we can do more. Highlighting more on that the housing displacement fund for folks that may not truly understand the mechanics and the intent. The intent of the program is basically to say, hey, I'm resident A, and resident A has historical property taxes worth, $2,000 a year. And that works well for, the Social Security payments on, whatever her annual budget, him and her annual budget was at the point in time. But then the medical college comes in, Pfizer comes in, Royal Capital comes in, makes all these great things, and the value of the home and its assessed value goes up. And so we're basically saying is, hey, if property tax has gone from $2,000 up to $3,000, the housing displacement fund is willing to cover that delta, that gap between the 2 and the 3. And we make that payment directly to the city of Milwaukee. That way, they're not being disenfranchised or put in a position where they can lose their home or have to move because of their the increased property tax. That's the overall intent of the program. We hope to grow it more as a community of leaders. But we definitely recognize that is a significant issue, and it's important for us as leaders to do something about it.
Ken Robertson, the location of this project is really right there. You got Harambe neighborhood, you got Halyard Park, you got Brewers Hill. So it has a potential to impact these 3 neighborhoods, the adjacent neighborhoods. But I think the larger question is whether or not, if this is successful in the way that you all hope it will be, whether this leads to other similar types of community investments around Milwaukee. Can this serve as a lesson learned for the city as we try to see change come to areas where there has been disinvestment?
Yeah, absolutely. I think when we started this journey, we started talking about this being a template for things that we can do, especially in neighborhoods that have historically had to deal with disinvestment, where investments have been scarce and there's been a challenge around supporting people of color. And that's led to the disparities that they see in the neighborhood. So we absolutely expect this to be a template as we move to other sides of the city, that we're able to replicate this sort of work. Some of the things that we've learned as we've kind of gone through this journey, in the middle of a pandemic, is that, you really got to take on this work by working together. We can't work alone or in silos in this sort of work. So picking up partners like the Medical College of Wisconsin with Greg Wesley's leadership, and what we've done with Royal Capital under Kevin Newell's leadership is just critical to kind of moving forward and putting together projects like this in other parts of the city.
My final question, I'll maybe have each of you address this briefly, is does this sort of investment signal a change in the way Milwaukee does business, or the way Milwaukee thinks about investment? Craig Wesley, a guy who's been in this town a while, tell me about your thoughts on that subject.
Well, if I have anything to do with it, I'll shout it from the rooftops every day, that this is an example of the way that you can bring community, economic investment, and others together. This is a community of neighborhoods, right? And always has been. And people are proud of those neighborhoods that they grew up in. And what I'm hopeful of is that you can bring capital to a community without the complexion of the community changing in a way that doesn't allow those who have been there forever to benefit. And then it's also demonstrating to the broader community that these are assets, right? These are assets that deserve to be invested in, and there's success from it. We are a community that's proud of our heritage, that's proud of actually being Milwaukeeans, and I think this can be an example for others, right? So you can pick any particular neighborhood that's been underinvested in, but has really good, what I like to call bones and spirit, and bring about some hope and some change.
Kevin Newell, I'll have you weigh in on that same topic. Are we beginning in this city to look at investment in a different way?
Yeah, I think so. And I'm not like internal optimist, one of those folks. But I think even looking at the reality is that things are changing. From a broader context standpoint, and I try to use this as an example. 90% of all the capital that Royal Capital has deployed in the Wisconsin market has come from outside of Wisconsin. It's historically been difficult to leverage capital internally to invest internally. The monies that, for instance, this project here is $100 million that Royal Capital, as the building owner, has to raise. Usually that money is, and in this case, it still may be the case, but a lot of that money comes from like New York, California, Chicago, Atlanta, Georgia, which is why I stay on the road, having to make those relationships, right? But I think that we're getting past that notion of always finding a reason to say no. It's trying to get creative to find a reason to say yes. And the objective really is to kind of say, hey, we can help ourselves and we can do some great things, and nobody knows these neighborhoods better than we do. But let's try to take off the financially conservative stance that, we'll take ourselves away from the financially conservative stance we've always had as an ecosystem, and take some risk on ourselves. And this is a case in point where taking risk is going to benefit so many folks in the neighborhoods, and it's an economically sound opportunity, and it's not charity, right? This is something that we can speak to that reaches the double bottom line. So I do think that we'll be finding more ways to leverage more economic development in the communities.
Oh, Lord.
It's a matter of us trying to, we just got to stay at it, because it doesn't come easy.
I'm going to go to Ken Robertson, and then I'll give a final word to Ms. Mosley. Ken, what do you think about, is this a time for new creative thinking?
Absolutely. And I'm extremely optimistic. I mean, just looking at our camera right now, and looking at the people that are actually talking about this collaboration from these anchor institutions, I would say that you wouldn't have seen this 5 years ago. It's not an accident that, 3 men, 4 people of color are talking about a project of this scale, this scope for Milwaukee. I would tell you, from a Greater Milwaukee Foundation perspective, we're leaning in a way that certainly during my tenure, I've never seen our organization lean in before. This isn't a small project for us. Kevin's talked a little bit about $100 million investment. What's kind of behind the scenes is that, the Greater Milwaukee Foundation is one of the investors. So we're leaning into that $100 million equation, and we're providing capital in that space. We're also looking at, when we talk about a generational commitment, we're leaning into that generational commitment with generational leases that anchor this overall project. So we are here to stay. We're not going anywhere. And I'm extremely proud of the commitment that our respective organizations have made.
Before I go to Ms. Mosley, a timetable for this project, you mentioned earlier, and I think a couple of you may have mentioned the challenges. I mean, we are still dealing with a pandemic. We have had economic challenges. We've had health disparity challenges. There's a lot going on here. What's the timetable right now, Ken?
I'm going to lob the ball over to our developer, Kevin, answer that question. Kevin.
No pressure, Kevin. No pressure.
You did that. That was beautiful. That was beautiful. That was great. Yeah. So there's no secret that we're trying to get going quickly. We're still marching through a couple internal opportunities to make sure we're getting this thing really, really tight. It's about measuring twice and cutting once. The goal, though, and everyone knows, is for us to get started this fall. So there will be some heavy machinery going on. We'll be on site soon. It's a matter of, is it going to be 10 days, 30 days, or 45 days? But it's a collective effort, and my team is, and the folks on this call are really pressing. So this fall is the best I got.
That's a great thinking on your feet there for having the question lobbed your way. Ms. Mosley, I'll give you the final word. So, you've been a resident of this city a long time. Give me your impressions of this moment. How does it feel to you as a longtime resident?
It feels good. I really appreciate, as I said before, what the Greater Milwaukee, Kevin Newell, and the medical college has done. To see King Drive revitalized from the time I got here in 1963, as I said before, to now, we're talking about quite a few years, decades. So looking to see what's going on there and what they're planning on doing, and has informed us of what they were planning on doing. I think it's going to be a great, great achievement for King Drive, thrive on King Drive. And with the artwork they talked about doing to the building, is going to bring it back to life. And we're excited about it. And we want to stay involved. You hear that? We want to stay involved and stay up to date with what's going on. And I think it's going to be a great asset. And that's going to bring more businesses to this area, I'm sure.
Before I thank all of you, one quick mention, our next On the Issues event is tomorrow. We're talking about how to attract and retain young professionals in Milwaukee. A lot of discussion about that. The Common Council had a millennial task force, and we'll talk to Common Council President Cavalier Johnson, Marquela Ellison from Social X MKE, and also Jeremy Foyet from Milwaukee. So that conversation will be live tomorrow at 12:15. We hope that some of the people watching today will join us for that too. But right now, I just want to say thank you. I want to say thank you to Lenny Mosley, to Kevin Newell, to Greg Wesley, and to Ken Robertson. We appreciate it. Thanks for being with us on the issues, and we'll see everybody next time. Thanks.